Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 227. Today I'm going to talk about Revolver. This is a little bit older of a game, a couple of years old. I believe it came out in 2011. In the States you can find this from Stronghold Games, and over in Europe and elsewhere you can find it from White Goblin Games. It is a two-player card game that each side takes on sort of an asymmetrical role. One side is sort of the sheriff and his buddies, and they're trying to track down basically a gang that's just robbed a bank or something like that, and they're trying to escape to Mexico. So each player has a unique deck of cards that they're going to play. So you're either going to play the good guys, you're going to play the bad guys, and you're going to be playing these at locations kind of in between each player, and moving a pawn that sort of acts to keep track of sort of the time in the plot. So basically the game feels a lot like a movie, like an Old West movie. And before I talk about how the game plays and how it works, which is actually really secondary to the game, they have this game. They've got Revolver, and they also have a Revolver 2, and then Revolver expansions like Revolver 1.1, 1.2, and I think they even came out with some more even this year at Essen 2013. So they continue to expand it. And I haven't played any of the others, and actually a friend of mine got me to try this. It's something that I'd seen and been interested in, a couple years ago, and just hadn't got around to it. And then, picked this up actually at Gen Con this year. So the way that the other expansions work is actually kind of adds different storylines to the plot. And I think in Revolver 2, you actually take on sort of a reverse kind of role where the bad guys are trying to stop the good guys from getting to a location, whereas in this one, the good guys are trying to stop the bad guys from getting to Mexico or escaping on the train. So it's very much a story-driven card game, but it is still very much a competitive, head-to-head battle match kind of idea. So let's take a look at how the game works, and then I'll come back and give you my thoughts. So here you've got all the components that come in the box. Like I said, there's a deck for each of the good guy and the bad guy. So they're basically got the same backs here, except you can see the good guy does not have this wanted, dead, or alive stuff on their back. And the bad guy also has the set of their gang. So you've got here the Jack Colty, the Crow. He's sort of the leader of the gang, and then you've got all these different gang members all the way down to Bullet the dog. So basically what's happening is that the gang is trying to escape all the way to Mexico, and then the sheriff and his cronies there are trying to basically eliminate all of the gang members before that happens. So you're going to start the game, everybody's going to get 5 cards, and then every round everybody's going to draw 2 cards into their hand, and we're going to move this little token here along these different cards. So you can see we're going to kind of basically have a gunfight in each location for a certain number of turns. Now there are cards that you can play to kind of move this back and forth, to kind of spend more time or try to advance the marker, make a quick escape. And there are different locales here. So you can see here is the bank robbery location, and then they're going to go escape in a canyon. These are always going to be in the same order every turn, all the way down to they get to the train here. Now you can see here is a little bit of a modifier there, so that you can see there's a +2 on this card, and then there's a +3 here on Whiskey Canyon. And these modifiers are actually going to add to the firepower of the Colty gang here. So you can see they have these little fire modifiers here, these little poker chips on some of their cards that they can play in front of them. These are in black, and then the good guys, their firepower here is in white. So the good guy will actually be sitting on the other side over there. Then you've also got these little markers here on the Mexican border card. You've got 12 of these red blocks here. Then you actually have 2 here off in the general supply. Now the Colty gang can also win if they remove all of the blocks here, and each deck has cards that will add and remove blocks based on different conditions. So like I said, every turn each player is going to draw 2 cards, and they're going to be able to play cards. The sheriff here is going to go first every turn, and you're going to play cards at the current location wherever this pawn is here. Now this sheriff guy does have some scouts that he can play to future locations, sort of prevent, and scout out the different locations. And then the Colty guy actually has a limit. He can only have 3 cards played at the location. Now some of the cards you're actually just going to play at the location. It'll be some character here. They'll have different effects, like this is when he comes into play, you draw a card. And then some of these are going to be different action cards, like the sheriff guy, he can actually block one row at any battlefield. That actually reduce the amount of cards that the gang can play. There's a whole bunch of different cards. You've got different cards of varying firepower. So he's got a firepower of 2. This one's got a firepower of 3. Like this one's got a 1, but you can actually draw a card. This one here is a Provoke a Buffalo Stampede. This actually has a firepower of 4, but you can see some of these have a cost. You've got to discard 2 cards. And then he'll have an effect, destroy 1, basically, you know, bad guy there. And then, and accept a hail of bullets or a Gatling gun. So these guys have some, you know, strong guns that they can throw out here. And these are good for getting rid of some of the weaker guns there. So you got a bunch of different cards with lots of different effects and things from both sides. And so some cards are actually going to, you know, directly attack a guy. So if I've got a guy at a location, you maybe play a card, it'll get rid of this one and vice versa. Some of the cards from the sheriff will actually go ahead and tell the gang player to get rid of one of their, you know, gang members. However, what you're going to do after both sides have played cards is evaluate the total firepower, also remembering to keep in mind the bonus for each location. Now, if the sheriff has more firepower than the culty member at the end of each turn, then they have to get rid of also one of their gang members. And you can see here we've got these little gravestones here, and they go from 0 up to 5. Well, you have to get rid of your gang members in a certain order. So the first time you have to get rid of a gang member, either from a card effect or from resolving the firepower at the end of the round, you're always going to choose one of the 0s here. And once you get rid of all the 0s, then you're going to choose some of the 1s and some of the 2s and 3s and 4s, and then once you get rid of 5, then you actually, you know, you lose the game. So when you actually kill these off, sometimes they don't do anything, they just die and they go away. But as you start to get rid of them, there's going to be different effects that happen here. So we can see here, Kittens Mackenzie, if killed before reaching the 315 Express, which is the train there, then you actually add and use these spaces. So if we take a look here, on the card just before the 315 Express, normally that's only going to be 2 spaces long, which is good for the bad guy because you're trying to get the marker all the way across as much as you can. But if she's killed before then it's going to kind of slow you down a little bit. You have to spend a little bit more time there. And so there's different effects here that when you kill a guy, so like if killed, you've got to discard a card. There's a couple other different ones here. So you really don't want these higher ones dying at all because they're going to be a lot more harmful. Your gang is basically being wiped out and the strength of the gang is going down. So that is the game, and it's a very simple game. Basically draw 2 cards, play whatever you want. You know, you can hold cards back or not play them. And that actually is pretty much the secret to the game. It actually adds a sort of cinematic flavor to the game. So you have these different locations and you're kind of trying to pick the spot where you're going to make your stand, whether you're going to be the good guys or the bad guys. You're really trying to sort of suss out and figure out where is the good spot to, you know, make my stand, commit a lot of firepower here. So early on, you've got sort of the, you know, terrain kind of helping out the gang. And you've got a big canyon there, and you've got this sort of buzzard point, which is kind of deep in the wilderness, if you will. And then once we start to get out towards, you know, Mexico and towards the train, then you don't get such a great modifier. Now the bad guys actually get one last ditch effort here, and this is called the Derail the Train card. So if you make it to the train, then you can actually sort of activate that card. It's going to wipe out everything on the board here, but it's also going to wipe out bandits. And so for each bandit that you save, you have to actually discard a card. So it's very much a last-ditch effort to sort of, you know, escape and flee into Mexico there. But you got to, you know, you got to pay quite a bit of cards to be able to activate that. And again, the good guys always got to keep in mind here these tokens here on the Mexican border card, and because, you know, the bad guy has ones that he'll remove too, and you can kind of get a sudden, you know, flurry of these disappearing. You may like say, oh, I got half of these left or so, and then you're on the train, and then boom, the bad guy in a couple of plays, you know, he gets down to, you know, 2 or 1, and then you got to be, you know, kind of worried there. So it plays very quickly. Let me just go back to my talking head. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview. This is a game I really enjoyed. I'm glad my friend talked me into checking it out. We've been playing it at lunch kind of off and on for the last month or so. You know, whenever we have a chance to have a 2-player game, you know, we break this out, and we've had fun playing, you know, different sides. I've played, you know, a lot of the sheriff side and a lot of the culty gang side. And it actually does kind of play out a little bit differently each time you play. There'll be different, you know, areas and locations where you have like a big shootout. And like I said in the kind of the walkthrough there, it is really kind of a cinematic kind of feel to it, where as you kind of get to know the decks, it doesn't take too long to get to know the decks. There's not like a lot of complexity in the cards or anything. But like you said, they've got the Gatling gun on the one side and a couple of like indestructible things on the other side. So that's like your big hitter, and it's like, when do I bring it out? Do I try to bring it out early and do a lot of damage, to the gang early, or do I save it up for this kind of real tight shootout at the end as they get into Rattlesnake Creek and then into the train, and then to try to really hammer them then. So it's interesting kind of form of hand management, because most of the cards you don't have to pay for. You think of like I don't know, you always refer to Race for the Galaxy or some other card game where you've got to pay money to play the cards, or pay other cards to play the cards. There's a little bit of that here, but the management actually comes from sort of the time of, the events and the plot that kind of unravels. It's sort of, you kind of think in the old West field, like, okay, I've got, I'm sneaking around the barn door, and and we're kind of trying to outflank the other guys, and then boom, we jump out and try to have an ambush and waste a lot of ammo and all kinds of stuff like that. So the way that the game drives you is based on just sort of that timer, ticking down. There's no really resources to manage, because you've just got a deck and you draw cards, and some cards will let you draw extra cards, but it's really that time pressure, and it's like the reverse of a race in a sense, because with some card games you're just trying to run up to a certain number of points or something, but this is very much a different game. So it's definitely a unique game in that sense, and it really does kind of give me the Old West feel, and I'm interested to look at like the other 1.1, 1.2, and the Revolver 2, which isn't really a different game. I didn't really know a lot about it, but looking at Revolver versus Revolver 2, it's really kind of the same game. It's just a kind of a reverse take on it. It's almost like an expansion, but it's kind of reversed from how the first one plays out. So anyway, it's been out for a while, but it's something that I just picked up recently, and I'm trying to catch up on playing some of the new games, and I've been playing this for a while. So this is a cool game. I would definitely check it out. It's relatively cheap, I think. I don't know. It's a small tin with some cards, and it is definitely being supported, and that's a pretty good sign that there's been like a lot of these little mini expansions sort of adding to the mythology or the the universe of this old Western time period. So anyway, definitely take a look at it and give it a try. It's definitely a unique game. I've not really played a game quite like this that unraveled in such a way. So thanks.